So briefly happened on here before the technician come over to help me set up my home internet in a little bit. Just briefly happened on here, keeping this series going of safeguarding children, which I abbreviated to SGC just to make the title of my videos shorter, but it's also something that I actually firmly stand on because like I've mentioned before in a lot of videos before this one, our children are constantly being exposed to a lot of things outside of the home, even inside the home, on social media, on the internet, in movies, anything that we can think of that are influences outside of the influence that we have on our children as parents, right? So it's so very important that we safeguard children from influences that could that could put them on a path to become dysfunctional when they grow into young adults. And that's something that we shouldn't want as parents. We should want our children to grow up to be respectable and respectful, functioning, productive, and healthy young adults. But without further ado, this video is just about something that I noticed recently while I was on the bus, I think on my way to Marcel's school. Yes, I was on the bus after I put my son on the school bus one morning earlier this week. I hopped on public transportation to get to his school building so that I could drop off some school supplies that I was blessed with by my caseworker. And while I was on my way to his school building, I couldn't help but to notice a teenage boy. He looked about 14, 15 years old. He was on his way to school. I could tell because he had on a school uniform and his book sack and everything. So, and I could tell that, he just by the way that he carried himself, I could tell that he take his schoolwork very serious, and that he come from a household where education is definitely number one, and he may even be in sports because he look athletic. So he may be on a basketball team or on the football team, probably as a quarterback. And but what I noticed was how I just was paying attention to his interaction with the bus driver, which was a male driver that looked just a little bit older than me by a few months. He looked like he in his early 30s or whatever. And so as the teenage boy was getting on the bus, he dabbed the bus driver off. With that being said, that gave out to me that they were actually familiar with each other. New Orleans is a very small city, so they could have became familiar with each other because he normally rides that particular bus on his way to school. The bus driver can know his mama or his daddy or his family, period. Because it is a lot of people in the city that have, connections, like real tight connections where pretty much everybody know everybody in this city because of how small it is. Somebody cousin knows somebody cousins, y'all pretty much know how it go. Anyway, so while the teenage boy was dabbing off the bus driver or whatever, then he asked the bus driver if he had change. So he probably didn't have a small amount of change to pay for his bus fare, because the machine, I don't think the machine takes I don't think the machine take big bills. I'm not sure. I mean, I put a $5 bill in there before where I paid for um a $3 bus pass for me that lasts for 24 hours, and then a 24-hour pass for my son because the youth pass is $1. So, but with that being said, that's what was going on. He was asking the bus driver if he had change, and he asked him a couple of times or whatever, and it seemed like the bus driver was, even though the bus driver cool with him, he, at the same time, it seemed like he was still, trying to get him to understand that, he still got to pay the fare. And so let me tell you how let me tell you how very smart kids are. See, that teenage boy, no doubt, that wasn't his first time doing that. I could tell because by the facial expression, I could tell he was very confident. He was very confident that he was going to be able to finesse his way to ride the bus for free. And hypothetically speaking, he could have had the money. I don't know if he had the money. I mean, because he was obviously asking if the bus driver had change. But then again, on the flip side, he probably didn't have it. And was asking the bus driver if he had change just to kind of finesse his way into riding the bus for free. Either way it go, he finessed his way into riding the bus for free. Now, I love children, but I'm still going to speak the truth on here and say that he finessed his way into riding a bus for free. And I could tell that wasn't his first time doing that. So I just say this to say, this is nothing against a teenage boy. Because at the end of the day, I look at him like he my little brother. Because I'm actually old enough to be his auntie. Wow, I'm old enough to be his auntie. But anyway, so he young enough to be my nephew, and I love children. I love all children. So this is not an attack against him as someone else's child. This is more of me speaking about how it's so important for us parents and as a community to safeguard children, even if that means we have to pull our children aside and correct them, because even though this seems like a minor incident, which is, I wouldn't consider it major, but it could definitely turn into something major once he grows into a young man. Once he start, reaching his adulthood, because he's slowly getting there to his manhood. So once he actually reached manhood, then him finessing his way into riding the bus for free, which, is small, it could turn into something big where he finessing his way into, just getting his way. Just getting his way. Getting his way at work with his boss. Getting his way with a woman that he does not see as a wife. If you know what I mean. I'm trying to choose my words wisely. Because whatever path our teenage kids, just to focus on boys right now, whatever path our teenage boys choose to step on once they reach manhood, hopefully it's the path that's actually going to help him grow and mature into a respectable and respectful, healthy, functioning young man. But sometimes, in some cases, it doesn't happen that way. But the whole point of the principle is that trying to finesse your way into getting your way is dishonest. And so we don't want our teenage boys to think that taking shortcuts in life and trying to finesse their way into getting what they want is okay to do. Because it's not. It's dishonest. And we don't want our young teenage boys to grow up like that. Because what they are allowed to do that's actually going to stunt their growth, and it'll prevent them from maturing into the mindset of a healthy, functioning, productive, grown individual. It can really affect the quality of his life once he becomes a man. So, because in most cases, when a young teenage boy, and even when a man, feels the need to take shortcuts in life and finesse their way into getting what they want, it's because of the fact that they are not confident in themselves that they can actually get what they need or get what they want without having to be dishonest, even in the slightest way to get it. And I'm just speaking the truth. And this is coming from a woman. But it doesn't have to just take for a man to come out and say that, because we women, we are very smart, just to point that out. We women are very smart, very, very smart, and we pay attention. Even though we are women and we understand how women operate, it does not mean that we don't know how to observe and analyze people, because we do. We're talking about us women. We use both sides of our brain, and I know that for a fact because I'm a woman myself. So whether we consciously or subconsciously, whether we're consciously aware of this or subconsciously unaware of this, we women use both sides of our brain. So we could tell when a young teenage boy or when a man is trying to finesse their way into getting something that they want. It's just most of the time we don't call it out. And I'm going to tell you why most of the time we don't call it out. Most of the time we don't call it out is because we understand how fragile boys and men are. That's the reason why we try to protect their feelings. Okay, I'm going to tell the truth. But, so I say this to say that it's so important for us parents and us as a community to safeguard children by teaching them to be honest in every way. It doesn't matter how small it is. Honesty, even in a situation where our child may feel less confident that they would actually receive the help that they need or receive whatever it is that they want, as long as it's going to benefit them. Still in all, our children have to understand the importance of being honest and how that's actually how trust is built. Because if we don't teach our children to be honest, even in the smallest way, then they will grow up into adults and go out there into the world, and they will think it's okay to cheat people, whether it's on a mental level, emotional level, spiritual level, or physical level. And that's never okay, because that's robbing people of their choice to be involved in something or not. And so whenever our children try to finesse their way into getting their way, then that basically would lead the other person in the blind to the fine print. And that's just, it's not respectable. And it's all about having good morals, and it's just all about treating people how you want to be treated. So, yeah. But that's all I really have to say about that situation. Because like I said, it wasn't anything major, but I still just wanted to speak on it because, like I said, something small can turn into something big. And it actually starts off that way. Things start off small, and then they gradually become big. So it just depends on what it is. And at the end of the day, we want the outcome for our children to be of good quality, to be of peace and prosperity, to be of good health, in every way. It matters because this is how our children will break this vicious cycle that a lot of us adults found ourselves in. And it's so hard to break, y'all. It's so hard to break, especially when a lot of unhealthy habits, a lot of unhealthy ways of thinking is attached to our ancestry line. That's very, very real, and it's so easy to pass it down to our children. So we want to help our children break a lot of these unhealthy habits, but it starts with us parents. It starts with us parents, and it starts with us as a community. Our children, they deserve to have a better outcome than what we did growing up when we were their age. So, but yeah, so that's all for today. I would definitely keep this series going because when it comes down to my child and for other children, I am a lioness that never sleeps. So y'all stay tuned for more.